Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Fireside with Founders and Leaders podcast. Today, I am joined by the brilliant Chris Storey, who is a tech director over at a company called Travelopia. So, Chris has been there for over 11 years, so he knows the company inside out, but he's seen some massive changes, especially over the last few years, where he's been through transformation. Travelopia is effectively a PE-backed and owned organization. And so we talk a bit about sort of what it's like to be in that type of environment, but really delve deep into how they've been transforming the business, utilizing AI to deliver more outputs, working with their software teams, their engineering teams, and empowering the rest of the business to be able to get the benefits that they see today through AI. Loads of really interesting insights and nuggets in this one, so I know you're going to love it. All that's left for me to do is to let you sit back, watch and listen and enjoy. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the podcast.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too. A glorious sunny day in London in what is currently an air-conditioned podcast studio, so a bit of relief from
Very much
the
so.
sun. Typically, we like to complain about it being British, but yeah, lovely to have you here today. Thank you for making the effort and the journey to come in. We've had a conversation off air talking about some of the things we're going to discuss today. So I'm actually really looking forward to getting into some of these topics. It'll be of no surprise to most people. It'll involve some AI along the way.
Yeah.
But the things that we've been talking about, you're relatively sort of far into your exploratory journey. And again, we'll get into some of that later. But if you could start by introducing sort of who you are,
Sure.
a bit about Travelopia as well, for those that don't know about the business, and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. So my name's Chris Storey. I'm a technology director for Travelopia. I've been at Travelopia for 11 years, actually. This week, as it happens. In a few different roles. I'm a technology director. So essentially that means I spend most of my time partnering with the businesses in our portfolio, making sure I understand what they're trying to achieve, what their business outcomes, what are their aims, and then helping to translate that into a roadmap and a set of activities for our technology team. I sit as part of the tech leadership group and partner with two other technology directors. So Shri, who's in India, who looks after all of our engineering and product, and Kaz, who looks after our information security. And we all work for our CTO, who's Mike. So that's me. And Travelopia, most people haven't heard of, actually. Travelopia is a portfolio of travel businesses. We were created, I guess, off the back of a sale from TUI. So most people have heard of TUI, large sort of German tour operator. It was about 8 years ago now, I think. We had that.
About right.
That sale feels like a long time ago. A lot's changed. So we created Travelopia at that time. So we brought together some of the smaller, compared to TUI, specialist travel brands into a portfolio. We've got about 8 business units in our group, about 20 or so brands. We serve about 230,000 customers a year, sending them on trips. We're about $1 billion of revenue. So sort of big enough to be interesting and exciting, but not too small, so a nice sort of sweet spot. So some of the businesses in our portfolio, we have a business called Quark Expeditions. So Quark do Arctic and Antarctic trips on the 3 vessels that we have in the fleet, which is amazing. TCS, which is a private jet. So we have 2 Airbus A321 jets, which we fitted out, and you can go on some incredible trips if you can afford it. But then we also have some yacht charter companies. So Sunsail and the Moorings are 2 of the largest yacht charter companies in the world. We have Le Boat. I'm at the risk of listing every. And then I'll be in trouble for the ones I forget. Exodus, Le Boat, Enchanting Travels, Kalos Golf. So generally
lots of variety.
And generally experiential sort of trips for people to go on. So.
Do you get to go on any of these trips?
I've been on a few. Unfortunately, not the TCS trip around the world. But it's a great industry sector to work in. For sure, but plenty more on the bucket list.
Maybe at 12 years, they'll give you something as a commitment to service.
We'll see.
And you mentioned PE-backed, right, as an organisation, and we talked a bit about AI transformation. It's been a big part of the work that you've been doing recently over the last, certainly the last sort of 2-3 years. I think even further back than that.
Yeah.
Um, like, can you talk to me a bit about the importance of transformation in an organization like yours, especially given that you're PE backed, because it can't just be experimentation. You've got to be commercially focused and minded.
Yeah.
So talk to us a bit about the drive and some of the things you're doing.
Yeah, so it is, and whether we're talking about AI or just transformation in general,
Mhm.
actually that's a journey, particularly with AI. Sure, last three years or so, but actually, if you look during our sort of ownership, the transformation journey itself has been fantastic, and we often talk about three phases of transformation that we've been on.
Okay.
The first phase was about dealing with just some of the legacy sort of tech debt type stuff. So a lot of on premise
Yep.
infrastructure, old applications, not necessarily talking very well to each other. So the first phase of our transformation was dealing with that.
Hmm.
Second phase we sort of refer to as the digital transformation bit.
Yep.
So that's where we really focused on customer experience, websites, making the most of CRM platforms, getting the data plumbed in together. That now it feels like we're in the third phase,
Yep.
which is the AI phase, right?
Yeah. Okay.
It's,
Yeah.
everything that we're doing in and around AI, and as you'd expect, I think most businesses are on this journey.
Yep.
It's interesting sometimes when you speak outside of your normal bubble, right, and you sort of interact with other companies. I think we're doing well in
Yep.
our journey, but we're by no means experts.
Yeah. Okay.
I certainly can't sit here today and say I'm an expert. We have all the answers. We're figuring it out pretty much like most people are,
Yeah.
I think, at the moment.
Yeah. I think that's
But
fair.
yeah, but we've got, a healthy mix, I think, of experiments, proof of concepts, sort of curiosity
Hmm.
that's emerging across the business.
Yep.
But then we have some things that we've scaled, plenty of things that haven't quite worked.
Yep.
I think a good mix, but we're actively managing it as a portfolio of change
Okay.
and as a transformation journey in itself. So I think we're sort of positioned well, but there's so much so much more to learn and to do and to achieve. It's going to be an interesting journey.
There's lots going on at the moment, as you say. I think like when you start actually speaking to people, you realise that no one's got a clue. Everyone's still figuring it out. It's the reality of it
Yeah.
all. There are people that will try and sell you a product saying that they've figured it all out, but I don't think they have at
No,
all. They're just
no.
trying to sell you their product,
Yeah.
which is fine. Like
Yeah.
that's how it goes in business.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear that even though you're quite far on the journey, you're still in that sort of zone of like figuring things out, like working out like where does this go. But I suppose what's your view on sort of where things are going over the next I don't know where to time it really. Next week?
2 or 3 days
Yeah,
around the
yeah,
timeline. Yeah, we
yeah.
joke, it felt like sort of February time, January, February this year, we noticed that there was almost like an inflection point. Something changed.
Yeah.
I think it was around February. There were a couple of Anthropic and OpenAI models launched around that
Yep.
time, that particularly in our software engineering sort of landscape really became truly transformational. I'm reminded of there's a great article, Greg Schumer, I think, the kind of and he talked about, this was in the middle of February, talked
Okay.
about things are going to change,
Yep.
and he talked about how for software engineers and software engineering and product development, we've kind of been on this AI journey
Mm.
now for 3 years, and as a piece of transformation, that's affected those teams significantly. Right now, it's about what next.
Yeah.
It's about finance, it's about legal, it's about every part of the organization, and so that's where we are at the moment. Actually, as
Okay.
Travelopia, is that we've been through huge transformation of our technology function
Mhm.
in terms of how we go about software engineering and product. Now it's about actually what else, what next, where
Yeah.
outside in the organization, and how do we take the learnings that we've been through as a team
Yeah.
and make sure that we can help to lead the charge with the rest of the business.
Nice. And when we spoke previously, you mentioned something to me that sort of stuck with me. You said the technology, that's the easy part, right? So I want to dig into like,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that? Because I think I know,
Yeah.
but it'd be great to try and sort of understand a bit more about your sort of drive again towards
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.
I think if you look at it in the context of where we are as a technology team, I think it becomes apparent. When I look at AI now and the way we use it in our software and product teams, I am 99.9% confident that we can solve any problem that the business has.
Okay.
And we can solve it really quite quickly.
Yeah.
um, and with the right sort of controls and quality and sort of
Mm.
guardrails, etc. As a really small example, I'm not a software engineer,
Yeah.
right? I can't write code.
Yeah. You and me
Despite,
both.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, despite being in a technology role, I occupy the space somewhere in between the business and tech, and
Yeah.
I'm quite happy there. But I partnered with my colleague last week,
Yeah.
and in the space of about 4 hours, we wrote an application. So I
Yeah.
honestly spent about half an hour. I had an idea in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
and said, it'd be great if we could do this. Spent about half an hour going backwards and forwards with ChatGPT as it
Yeah.
happens, and just sort of built a prompt.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I needed a bit of help with the how do we make this happen
Yeah.
with whatever tool sets. And in about 4 hours, I had a sort of phone call and said, jump online, and it was there, and the product was built.
And they built it, or did you use AI to deliver
All
the
AI,
code?
all AI
Yeah.
code,
And
100%
what did
AI,
you use for that? Was it
100% AI.
Claude
It
Code
was
or?
Claude
Yeah.
Code. Yeah, it was Claude Code.
Yeah. Yeah.
Claude Code. But I
Nice.
think we're good at experimenting with lots of different things.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it was Claude Code.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the point, right? It is from an idea to having, and it's not 100% perfect. It
Uh,
needs some iterations, some
yeah.
refinement. But even a year ago, I could never have dreamt of just saying, can we build an application and it's ready a few hours later?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy, right? When you think about it.
Yeah. That is.
And so that's if you start to think about the power of that, then
Mm.
where me as a non-developer, non-technologist really can just talk to the AI and refine my idea
Mm.
and then have it built in a few hours. And if I can do it, then anyone in our business can do that,
Yeah.
right? Whether you're in a finance team, a HR team, a sales team, you can do that. And that starts to present very different challenges for us as a technology team, actually,
Yeah.
as an organization, because all of a sudden we've gone from we're 200 people in a group tech team and our job is to write code and build products to actually that's not our job anymore.
Yeah.
Our
Okay.
job is probably much more about enabling the right people in the right people in the organization to do that work, but then our role becomes much more about a
Mm.
little bit of control, good governance, data, thinking about information security, etc., etc.
Yeah.
It's just such a dramatic shift
Yeah.
in mindset. So to bring it back to your point about the people and the technology bit,
Yeah.
that technology is easy, right? From my perspective, I look at it and I think we can solve any problem that's
Yeah.
given to us. The hard bit is figuring out what does that mean to the organization.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. How does it change people's roles? How are we going to control this so
Mm.
it's not just chaos? How are we going to put the right guardrails and controls and think about data and information security and all the super important stuff that we have to do?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what
Okay.
I'm absolutely certain the technology is the easy bit.
Yeah. Makes sense. And look, it's always one of the things, the challenges around any organization, but especially sort of enterprise level, is the fact that you've got so many people trying to
Yeah.
move all those components around and make sure that the right people are speaking to the right people, etc.
Yeah.
You talked about, maybe finance, marketing, whoever it might be, being able to pick up, an AI model and build something as an engineer would.
Yeah.
But one of the things I see is actually sometimes a bit of resistance from those people. They don't want to do it because we get excited because we're in the tech industry.
Yeah.
And specifically you're in the tech industry more than I am. So you get probably more excited by it. And people who are writing code probably get very excited by the fact that they can build something in 4 hours that would have taken them 4 weeks before. But someone in finance is not necessarily, they might be, but they're not necessarily as excited by that. So how do you navigate that sort of challenge where you've got resistance from adoption in a large organization?
It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So say technology easy, people hard.
Yeah.
Really hard. I don't think we've got the answer figuring it out. But I think you said software engineers get really excited. Actually, when we've been on our journey, lots of software engineers have got really excited by it, but actually some software engineers didn't get
Yeah,
excited by
that's
it,
fair.
right?
Yeah.
And same with QA and same with product owners. Now we're fortunate we've built, I think, a capability of technology at Travelopia that's really strong with fantastic people who, generally we've all leaned very heavily into it. Like you say, we're all technologists, so there's a natural interest there. I think it's much harder if you then sit with, someone in a finance team, for example, and say, right, we're going to start using AI, because I think, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, well, what does that actually mean? You've got the CEOs of all these big AI companies coming out openly talking about, we're going to confidently eliminate 50% of white collar
Yeah.
roles in 4 years' time or whatever, and it's difficult, right? And I don't think we've got an answer for what it means. I think at the moment we're very much in that phase of, we want to drive we could talk a lot about curiosity, right? We want to drive curiosity,
Hmm.
interest. We want people to experiment. We want people to, we've chosen to equip people with tools.
Hmm.
So a lot of our organization use Copilot, Claude,
Yeah.
whatever the tool is. Tomorrow it'll be something different.
Yeah.
And we want them to experiment. But what we say is experiment and then get to a point where you recognize that you might need a bit of help
Hmm.
to take it to the next stage. And then that's where, as a technology team, our role is to go in and partner with them and figure out what we do. And the other thing we've done is we've tried to identify in the organization who are those really key people who are going to help to drive change.
Yeah.
So we refer to them as business technologists,
Okay.
which I think is a Gartner term,
Yeah.
actually, that we stumbled across. So business technologists are the people who are, really great, grounded understanding of the business
Hmm.
and what it is, whether it's an operations team or finance processes or whatever it is. But they also have an interest, a curiosity, a willingness to experiment with AI. And actually, when you bring those two things together, that's really quite powerful, because
Yeah.
then, back to the point about somebody in a business team building AI themselves,
Yeah.
you've got the context and the knowledge and the interest, then you can do great things. So we've identified across the business where those business technologists are,
Yeah.
and then really partnered them with our tech team, again, to make sure that the guardrails and the safety and the security is all there. But it's a really hard journey.
Yeah.
It's a really, really hard journey. And I wouldn't believe anybody who says they know how to solve this, or
Yeah.
even where this is going to go in the next 6 months.
And if to your point of like some software engineers not being so excited by it, I've seen and heard from various people sort of questioning, like, what does the future look like? There's genuine concern from some people going, well, if anyone can just pick up an AI tool and build what I can build, like, what does that mean for me and my journey? And have you seen that within the business and from wider sort of network as well?
Yes, I think so. And again, software engineering in particular is the industry, the sector that's felt this change the most
Yeah.
first, right? So, but what we've done is we've evolved our operating model. So as a technology team, we used to have squads that supported our business. So you might have a website squad or a squad that supports applications for a particular business, and those squads would typically have a product owner, have some engineers, they'd have QA,
Yeah.
have some DevOps help, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes these teams were 8, 10, 12 people big, right? We've evolved that now. So our squads now are much smaller in nature,
Okay.
much tighter. So a product owner still, but then generally fewer engineers, fewer QA, but actually we have more of these squads.
Okay.
So
So more squads. So not
more
less
squads,
people.
not less people.
Yeah.
Yeah, more squads.
Interesting.
So of course there's been some compression of our team.
Hmm.
That has happened, but we've been able to really focus on how do we deliver more
Yeah.
rather than delivering less for less money.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um,
It's not a cost saving exercise, really, purely
right. Yeah.
in that play.
And you mentioned about sort of PE backing as well. I think that's where really focused on output, delivering value.
Yeah.
It's important. So we now say as businesses, we do our strategic planning cycles and build roadmaps and all that stuff. Don't be constrained anymore by the technology.
Mm.
Dream as big as you possibly want. If you wanted to, recreate your business from scratch today, what would it look like? What would the technology look like to enable that? That's pretty much the starting point now,
Yeah.
as opposed to in the past where it would be, we're going to be a bit constrained by budget. I'm not sure if the tech team's going to be able to deliver it. It might take 6 months. Those conversations pretty much now are gone.
Yeah.
It's about how do you dream as big as you possibly want to,
Yeah.
and then we'll create a team set up around it that helps to enable that. By the way, this might prove to be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows what next week holds?
Yeah, this is what we feel is the right thing
Yeah.
to do, and that's what we're doing at the moment. But it comes from experimentation, right?
Yeah.
And we've been through iterations of this, as we will do over the next few weeks and the next few
Yeah.
months, right? But I think being willing and able and sort of open to experimenting
Yep.
in all of this has got to be super, super important.
Yep.
And if you've got that kind of closed mindset, you're going to struggle with all this change.
And so you seem, as you said, like you're not perfect in terms of ways of working yet, and things can change. But you're quite far down the line in terms of your metaphorical journey with AI and experimentation, and moving beyond experimentation into actually implementation
Yeah.
of a lot of the things that you're doing. Why do you think it is that you've been able to do that? Whereas I see still a lot of companies that are stuck in experimentation mode. And I've got my views on it, but I'd love to understand like
Yeah.
why you think that the companies sometimes get stuck in that sort of mindset.
We talk. It's a really good question. I think we talk about sort of different phases of AI,
Mm,
and in most instances, it starts with what we call like personal productivity. So it's you as an individual sat there with Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever, just using it, right?
yeah.
The hard bit is then how do you scale that to something meaningful? Because if you're only focused on the individual productivity, it'll be great. You probably save yourself a few hours a week because you're, you know, summarizing your emails, or
Yeah.
maybe your content's a bit better because you're using Claude to build
Yeah. Okay.
PowerPoints and kind of stuff. But it's not going to transform the business,
Yeah.
right? The hard bit is then taking it from that to something which has a meaningful impact across a team,
Hmm.
right? So taking an idea, proving it, understanding the value of it, and then partnering with the technology team to then scale it, right? That only happens if you have the support from the leadership. So again, one of our kind of principles we talk about a lot is if this has to be led from the top.
Okay.
So we're really fortunate, right? We've got a CTO who's really passionate about this. My tech director colleagues equally passionate about it. So as a technology function, we've really been able to embrace it because it's been led from the top.
Yeah.
Similarly, now in our organization, our chief exec talks very openly about, we want to be the best
Mm,
when it comes to the combination of technology and humans, right? And really sort of helping to push the boundary. If you speak to the leaders across our businesses, equally so, they believe in it and they create the time and the space to make this stuff happen. We talk about you can't delegate the responsibility for AI.
yeah.
And one of the debates we have actually is I use my example of, creating an app.
Yeah.
Somebody who doesn't write code. We've believed for a while that in order to truly understand the potential of this technology, you have to experience it
Yeah.
yourself.
Okay.
So we say to our senior leaders, you have to go and spend some time really experiencing it, even to the point of come and join us,
Hmm.
come to visit our team in India, come and co-create something, sit there writing some prompts with Claude Code. You can imagine the managing director of one of our businesses doing that, right?
Yeah.
But we think and it's not to say they're going to do that forever.
Yeah.
It's not to say they have to suddenly, become software engineers overnight,
They understand it a bit more though,
but they
don't they?
understand it a bit more,
Yeah.
and they understand the power of it, and
Mm,
they understand the pace of it,
yeah. Okay.
and it starts to open up their
You
mind.
go, oh wow. Okay.
Oh wow,
Actually, this is great.
yeah. Oh,
And then
now
they're thinking, what can we do with this?
exactly.
Yeah,
I
nice.
think it just releases some of the constraints,
Yep.
shackles. Now that in itself is a hard conversation to have. It's
Mhm.
like, I'm a really busy person. What do you mean I have
Yeah.
to go and spend
Yeah.
4 hours, sat in a dark room? But we think it's important. Actually, we've seen that where people have that aha moment, and the penny drops. It's because they've invested 4, 8, 12, 20 hours
Mm,
over a few weeks to really partnering with our teams and seeing what can be done.
yeah.
So I think it's really about leadership, and it's about sort of trying it and understanding it.
Mm,
And I think if you haven't got those two ingredients as a company
yeah.
wanting to go on this journey, I think you're probably going to struggle.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely spot on. I mean, my view and things that I've seen is the organizations where the top are resistant, and
Yeah,
then it doesn't filter down so much. You've got people, coming in at sort of more contributor level, and they're
yeah.
saying they want to use these tools, they want to go faster, they want to do more, and they're saying, no, you can't use it. We're not getting you any license. It's a slow burn sometimes to try and get people to see the benefits of it. But
And there's also an interesting debate, isn't there, about to what degree you enable an organization to experiment versus blocking it and locking it down. So
yeah,
I've heard of companies where it's like, no, we're not, the tools are blocked,
yeah,
right? Or there's one tool you can use and that's it,
yeah,
right? I think we've been a little bit more flexible than that. We have preferred tools, of course we do. We have quite a strict process in terms of if you want to use a new tool, you share it with us. We'll have a look at it. We'll let you know what you
Yeah.
think, and then we might enable it. But that's the best way to enable experimentation. We don't know what all the best tools are that's out there, right? There might have been something released last week that's going to be transformational to the business that we don't know about yet,
Mm.
but somebody in our business does know about it. We want to be able to enable that as long as it ticks the boxes of
Yeah.
safety and security. So, we have a sort of, again, we have lots of frameworks to manage this stuff, as you
Yeah.
can imagine. But, we think about there's some people and tools that we want to really be completely free and open to experiment with,
Yeah.
right? And they're trusted people that we allow to do that. There's a bucket of people who are, just happy to use the approved tools that we've got. Right. And that's fine. And then there's a bucket of tools that are just blocked, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a banned list, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. So we try and kind of then make sure our policies and training and everything matches that kind of
Yeah.
hierarchy. But again, experimentation, that hierarchy, the latest iteration of that hierarchy was something we discussed at the end of last week. So
Okay.
always sort of evolving as the need.
The tools change and everything changes, as we said, sort of week to week, day by day. I'd love to talk a bit about some of the experimentations that you've done, if we can.
Yeah.
Like what's worked, what's not as well. So talk us through, like, say, that journey, some of the things that you guys have been working on over the last few years.
Yeah, gosh. So we've done quite a lot of work with our sales teams,
Okay.
actually, which has been great. So if you imagine a sales agent for one of our businesses pulling together a proposal, you might have contacted us about wanting to go on an amazing trip.
Yep.
That used to be quite a manual job, actually, of, we're going to pull some, pricing information from this system and maybe some visuals from the website. And, you kind of imagine copy pasting stuff into a big Word document and then PDFing it and sending it out, right? It's several hours work, actually, in some instances. So we've had some really interesting experimentation around using AI to do that, right? So essentially generating quotes using sort of transcripts from calls with customers where because if I'm talking to you on the phone for 45 minutes to build out your dream holiday, then actually we've pretty much got all the information that you need.
Just
right?
need to get it.
You just plug
from
it
there.
in with some
Yeah,
pricing, and then off you go. So that's been a real game changer for us. Similarly, or in a related field, we've done a really great sort of piece of work that we built ourselves, which is, again, taking the transcripts of calls with customers, but then using it to coach our sales agents.
Okay.
So, against the framework that we use, like all good sales businesses will use a framework for selling, but then using the transcripts and then scoring and helping to coach and guide, and which is transformational, again, for our sales managers and leaders. In the past, they would have had to have listened in to recordings of calls. You could probably only do a few, right? Out of hundreds of calls potentially. But with the AI, it'll take all of the data from all of the calls and then produce these really fantastic sort of outputs. That's a great example of something that started as one idea that one person had in one of our businesses. Sort of fleshed it out, built it. We actually showcased it at one of our leadership conferences. Everybody then wanted it. Now everybody has got it. Which is the fantastic bit about being part of a portfolio, actually, is you can spread this technology out across businesses. So lots of stuff in sales, obviously software engineering we've talked about, right? Transformational in the way that we've used it there. We're doing some interesting stuff in the finance space as well. Particularly where you have a lot of these generally big, complicated finance systems. I won't name them, but you don't want to particularly invest in their own technology and their own AI, because it'll generally be a bit expensive. But how can you get some of the efficiencies by taking data out, right, and then doing stuff ourselves? And so that marketing, there's not a single part of the business, right? There's not
touching on everything.
Touching on everything. But I think those sales experiments are the ones that stand out, because we've then been able to scale them across some or all of our businesses.
I mean, I can speak firsthand from our experience, and we're effectively a sales business as well in recruitment, and we have the same sort of tooling system where we use something to transcribe the calls that the consultants have, and then look at being able to coach based on the transcription, and it's just saving hours and hours of my life, which is great.
The other example that springs to mind, actually, is and it's kind of somewhere between the business and tech, is we have a couple of legacy systems. One of them in particular is like 40 plus years old, so good green screen,
right? Great.
Green screen application. It's been challenging, right, to drive change into an application like that in the past, because everything's just interlinked. You change one thing over here, it breaks something over here. None of the people, obviously, who created the application are still in the business. The team's been through several iterations. So it's always just been a little bit too big and scary to do something about.
Yeah.
Now, the ability for us to either reverse engineer some of that using AI, or the pace that we can start to build functionality outside of the application and just have it sort of talking, mind-blowing again, right? So we had a team last week actually who did we call it a dark mode, where they
Okay.
just go into, think of it like a hackathon, but
Okay. Yeah.
2-3 days, short, intense focus, no distractions, just focus on outcomes, and they were able to create these new screens, giving all this new functionality, something the business had talked about for years that they wanted. And just with a little bit of focus,
Yeah.
the right team, a little bit of focus, the right AI, in a few days, they're able to smash out 5 or 6 of these features, away from the green screen
Yeah.
application. Just transformational.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really is.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. And what are the things that haven't worked out that you've killed? Like, can you give us any examples of that?
Yeah, we did some chat bots earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
There was one that springs to mind, and I think it was so this was probably 2.5 years ago
Mm-hmm.
now. So it was a while ago, and we created a chat bot, whatever the LLM was that sort of underpinned it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't great. It
Mm.
was okay, but it wasn't great. But also, it didn't have the right sort of buy-in, adoption, understanding of why it was there from the business itself.
Yeah.
So it was almost a case of, we've built it because we can,
Yeah.
not necessarily because the business want it or
Yeah.
our customers want it. So we ended up, we did good things like we tracked usage and we could see how many chats were happening a day, and it just kind of trickled down to nothing really.
Yeah.
We ended
Okay.
up turning it off. So on the face of it, it just wasn't right, or it wasn't needed
Yeah.
or something. Great experiment, because
Yeah.
then it taught us when we do our next chatbot, maybe we need to do something different. So
Yeah.
definitely not wasted effort.
Yeah.
But it's an example of something that just didn't quite click. Yeah.
It feels very much like 2 years ago when this was all really starting to kick off, and that's when people were like, they were starting their AI journeys
Yeah.
and putting things in and building things that people didn't need, get any
Yeah.
value out of.
And we talk a lot about, sometimes the answer's not AI,
Mm.
by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes the answer's
It's often
just,
not actually.
I just need this problem solving.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time coaching our sort of business stakeholders to don't come to us and say, oh, I want this fantastic piece of AI that we've just seen. And then we spend a bit of time reverse engineering. Well, like, why? What are
Yeah.
you actually trying to solve? And you get back to the problem statement and then build it back up from, once you got the problem statement, well, what are we actually going to do about it? Might or might not be AI, might be the SaaS software that you found, that somebody's tried to sell you. Or it might not be. It might be something that we can build ourselves,
Yep.
actually, because we've got, strong capability. We can build it ourselves, and that'll be quicker, cheaper in the long run, not tied,
Yep.
to a particular vendor, etc. So yeah, I think
And you have to ask the right questions though to get to those answers when AI is not the answer, because I think we get caught up in the hype bubbles or
Yeah.
whatever, and it's constantly talking about it. So you're thinking about it,
Yeah.
and everyone's trying to solve everything with AI at the moment. But sometimes it's great, as you say, take a step back and think about what's the problem we're really trying to solve here.
Exactly.
Let's actually look at what the best solution might be, rather than just jump straight into it's automatically AI.
Yes, exactly.
Overall.
Yes, yeah.
And have you seen sort of other instances whereby like AI hasn't been the answer for things that you've been building?
Yes, there are. I have to have a little think about some examples of that. What I do see a lot of, though, is I think there's quite a lot of fatigue around AI. I experienced it myself. I said to my to Sri, my colleague, last week, I just need to stop. I need a weekend.
Yeah.
So the Saturday, Sunday long bank holiday weekend to just decompress a bit, because I think the intensity, it's intense, right? If you're in that AI bubble, particularly when you're leading teams who are going through it, you're also trying to transform the business.
Yeah.
It's there's not a single conversation that doesn't end up being an AI conversation, and there's a level of intensity to it, I think, that sometimes is quite hard to deal with. So I'm not entirely sure that answers your
Yeah,
question, but
yeah.
it's just something that kind of came to mind, that it's back to the human technology bit.
Yeah.
Right? If you assume the tech is solvable, on the human side, when there are people involved in this journey, either they're creating the software or they're on the receiving end, or their team processes are changing.
Mm.
It's just a real sort of reminder that, of making sure that people aren't burning out,
Yeah.
being fatigued by it, but also just some good change management principles, right? Good 101 around, thinking about your people, the comms, the
Yeah.
awareness, the training, all the good sort of change management stuff you get taught, is really important.
And as a leader, is that how you think you can solve that potential issue sort of coming up, by just making sure you're putting structure in place, guardrails, etc.?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. So we've got a really good partnership. Actually, we talk about it's people and tech, right? So
Yeah.
it's as much about our tech teams as it is about our people teams.
Yeah.
So we've got an amazing people team, and people HR directors across the group, who are part of this journey as well, right? So whilst we're thinking about, well, this is how we're going to solve the tech,
Mm.
the people teams will be thinking about, well, this is what it means. This is how we're going to solve this for our organization. These are the teams whose processes are going to have to change, or the ways of working are going to look different.
Yeah.
Or in some instances, the structures are going to look different, as we've experienced in the technology team. So it has to be both. And I think they bring a really good grounding in change management.
Yeah.
Naturally, they're a bit more people focused, right? And so, yeah, that's our sort of formula at the moment, is
Yeah.
the combination of the two. And yeah, not thinking about one in isolation, really.
I was going to say, it's really interesting, that balance, as you say, because there's lots of change going on in businesses at the moment, and I imagine most people teams are probably quite busy
Yeah,
trying to solve a lot of this
yeah,
this stuff out, and having to work with technology even more than they
yeah,
were previously, to make sure that things are moving in the right direction, looking after the people that you worked with, especially when there's any transformation and change that will often lead to change in job roles, and change in headcount, things like that across the board. So definitely an important one, to make sure that the people team are involved on a day-to-day basis, to try and balance it.
yeah,
And I've seen that other companies have perhaps got that a little bit wrong, where they haven't involved those teams, and they're sat there going, well, but what are we meant to do? And talking about all these people creating all this extra work. So you may have reduced some of the workload by doing this, but you've increased the workload of the business overall,
yeah.
because you've created some sort of, well, it's not technical debt, but some sort of debt, workload debt, we'll
It,
call
it
it.
becomes a technology thing then, right? It
Yeah.
becomes the technology team have done this thing to us,
Yeah. 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 And then you
as
battle
opposed, and it's
against.
back and forth. And we talk about push and pull a lot.
Mm.
So we really don't believe that pushing technology onto our businesses is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Far rather have a situation where they're pulling from us and saying, oh, we really like this, we really need this, this is the problem we need solving, can you come and partner with us and do that?
Mm.
Yeah, particularly as a group business with a portfolio of businesses, each of our businesses is fantastically unique and different.
Yeah.
One size doesn't fit all, and from a technology sort of strategy perspective, we have to be okay with that.
Mm.
You're not just going to be able to say every single brand is going to have this bit of technology and it's going to work. There has to be a bit of flexibility, but the push-pull mechanism
Yeah.
is really important for us. You can't push technology, and without the people team in the heart of it, it becomes a technology push.
And you talked a bit about, I think you called it sort of dark mode, and
Yeah.
where you look at really focused time for outcomes.
Mm.
And I was wondering if you've seen a bigger drive for more outcomes now, especially maybe from the top, like board, investor level. Are they saying, okay, well, you're telling us all about all this great stuff you're doing
Yeah.
with AI and technology. We expect more outcomes coming down.
Yeah, I think, as a business, we're an ambitious business,
Yeah.
right? We grow every year, and there's always going to be a pressure to do more. I think the interesting formula, I guess, is to what degree you sort of drive more outcomes through greater tech. So greater tech investment leading to even more great
Hmm.
outcomes. We can do that, but does that mean we should do it? Because actually, if you're a particular business, we could churn out millions of lines of code a week if we
Yeah.
wanted to, right? It doesn't necessarily mean we should,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's only good if the business is ready to sort of A, partner with us to make sure it's the right thing, and then B, drive the adoption or drive the usage or drive whatever it is to make sure that the outcome is delivered.
Yeah.
Because there's no point if there's no business outcomes, right? We
Yeah.
all know that. So I think the pressure for outcomes is probably the same as it has been. It talked about our different phases of the transformation journey, right? Whether it's transforming legacy debt, whether it's digital transformation, or whether it's AI, there's always a pressure to make sure it leads to some. We shouldn't be doing it, right? If it doesn't lead to some kind of tangible outcome,
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be about increasing revenue or reducing cost. It could be in our business about improving customer experience, and then there's sort of secondary and tertiary benefits of that, because in theory that drives
Yeah.
retention or repeat, increased repeat rates, etc. So that focus on outcomes has always been there. I think the difficult bit now is balancing, actually, because I think we could deliver so much in
Mm.
theory. There could be many great outcomes for a business, but can we cope with that? And
Yeah.
to change is a question mark, right?
Yeah, okay.
To be decided.
Yeah, I think again another one of those things that we'll have to look at in the future
Yeah.
when things change again.
Yeah.
And the fact that you guys are PE backed as an organization, there's differences from the things I see in terms of how you can implement, experiment, like do things comparatively to well, definitely a startup, right? But even something that's like angel invested or VC backed
Yeah.
organizations, there are different ways of working. So what are and again, appreciate you've not necessarily sort of worked in the former environment. So, but from your experience working under a P backed environment over the last 11 years, like what are the things that you see that you guys need to do because of you're in that environment comparatively to someone else who's not?
I think it's a great question. I think there's a higher expectation of outcomes,
Hmm.
right? So I think there's a higher expectation that the investment that's made in our technology actually drives a meaningful business
Mm.
impact, right, or outcome, whatever that measure is. Um, I think equally being part of that sort of environment where you're working perhaps with other portfolio businesses in the PE sort of fund gives you access then to insight, gives you access to partnerships with, whether it's with the big AI companies or someone else,
Yep.
that you obviously wouldn't get if you were in a sort of smaller startup environment. I think it also attracts talent in a way that perhaps would be difficult. So I think being part of, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If we've been on this fantastic tech journey at
Mm.
Travelopia, we've really transformed everything from our tech stack and our team and the way we do it. So it's a very attractive place to work, I'd say, for technologists. Um, and I think that wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have the backing
Yep.
of our board and our owners ultimately, because they see the value of it.
Yep.
And I think that's the other important bit is, whether it's a startup or private equity or VC or anything else, if your leadership don't believe
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
power of technology, or more recently in the power of AI, then yeah, you're not going to get the investment. You're not going to be able to have the freedom to experiment, because there's going to be different types of pressures. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a sort of a good answer really, but I think it's all of those things come together
Hmm.
um, to sort of make it a slightly unique environment.
Yep.
But single thing that stands out is the buy-in from the leadership, though.
Yeah.
'Cause I think without that buy-in from the leadership and the understanding of the need to experiment, you wouldn't, particularly in an AI world, right? You
Yeah.
need to be able to experiment.
Yeah, which makes sense. And I suppose if you're working in a smaller startup, you get the buy-in from the leadership anyway, because they probably own the
Right.
business and they're doing it because
Yeah.
they're bought into it.
Yeah.
Whereas it's different when you've got layers and layers of
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
above and boards and things like that. So, yeah, I definitely think that's something that's probably a fair answer,
Yeah.
given the things that we've seen and heard over the last sort of few years. And I suppose in terms of like where things are going as well, and here's the crystal ball
Yeah.
moment, right? Get it out. But what do you think that you guys will see over the night? Let's call it 6 months, because I think looking any further in the future,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably unrealistic and it'll have changed and
Yeah.
be outdated very quickly. But certainly with the things that you can do to get more outcomes and deliver better outcomes, outputs, etc. With the way technology is going, what are you seeing? What are you hedging your bets on at the moment?
There's probably two or three areas. Um, I think the first is I talked about individual productivity before. I think for us at least, the quality of the models now, and I'm certain the next Anthropic or OpenAI or Microsoft models will be even greater. The power it gives to individuals actually is quite mind blowing, right? So even a few weeks ago, right, we were talking. Everyone was excited about Claude, right? Because
Yeah.
it's the number of show in town, and then now you can actually get some of the Claude models inside Copilot, which is
Yeah.
great for us because
Yeah.
we're a Microsoft business,
Yeah.
and we have lots of Copilot users, so it gives us all that sort of protection and safety, within that Microsoft estate. So it seeing over the next 6 months, I think for us, it's going to be key to see how people's individual productivity really starts to ramp up because they're realizing the power of the tools. And actually, I'm not hearing so much. Actually, a year ago, I heard a lot of, I used AI once and it wasn't very good, or I used this tool or that tool and it wasn't great, and so I've kind of stopped using it. I don't hear that anymore. So the
Mm.
people that we've recently added to, having Copilot, for example, they don't say that, right? Because the quality, I think, of the output and just the maturity, I guess, of the models
Yeah.
means they can get the value straight away when they see it. So I think there's definitely next 6 months is something about individual productivity and really turning the dial on that.
Yeah.
I think the second thing is then from a software engineering and a product development perspective, how do we get our sort of operating model working really well consistently across all of our businesses,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, not all of our businesses is the same. Some are more mature, some are less mature in the way that they sort of work with us and their ambition around AI. But getting that operating model to a point where it just works across all of our businesses.
Yeah.
So we talked about smaller squads, tighter teams, that dark mode idea, all those things coming together, but really accelerating it. So the challenge for us as a tech team,
Yeah.
suddenly everybody wants everything.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure that out. But that's the sort of second, third thing. I think the final thing is then as a sort of technology leader, I think the onus is on me, the team, to kind of be a step ahead of everybody else
Okay.
in our organization. Rightly or wrongly, everybody looks at the tech team as, well, you guys know AI, so what should we be doing next?
Yeah.
What's the, what does this new release from Anthropic actually mean? So part of the challenge, I think, is how do we scale what we're trying to do with all our businesses whilst at the same time just trying to stay a little bit ahead of the rest of the business
Yeah.
in
Okay.
understanding. So how do we invest a little bit of time in understanding the model that was released yesterday or the new tool that's in town? And that's hard, right? Because you're trying to run really fast over
Yeah.
here and you're trying to stay ahead. Um, so yeah, but it's just impossible to predict, right? Or I think the only thing that is predictable is every 3 to 6 months, it just feels like it's getting better and faster,
Yeah.
right? I can only assume that's going to carry on going, right? So in a world where everything is getting better and faster and every model is, XYZ, what does that mean for us as a business?
Mm.
I think we've often thought actually as a technology team, we're really quite efficient now. I don't know how much more efficient we can be with all these new models. I'm more interested in what it means for the rest of our business.
Yeah.
So how do we really start to use the power of these models in our finance team or our legal team or our HR team or our marketing teams? That's the real power because we're ahead of the journey.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think as a tech team, it's how we scale it more consistently across the business.
Where do you think we are, generally speaking, as a society? I guess big question here.
Yeah, yeah,
But just on the maturity levels of AI from where we've been, because you mentioned obviously people not adopting it because they go, "I used it once, it's a bit rubbish," to now going, "Actually, it's all right. I can
yeah.
I can use this and get value." So where do you think we are if we were saying sort of a scale of 1 to 10?
It's I wouldn't even know how to put a number on it. I suspect we're like one or two.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
suspect,
Really
yeah.
low down.
I would think so, yeah. When you just think it's such a relatively small amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Since we first heard about ChatGPT, right? Which is for most people was probably that
Yep.
entry point. So what was that, 3 years ago
Yep.
or so, a bit more?
Yep.
Um, so in the last 3 years, you look at where we've come. I can only assume, therefore, in the next 3 years, 6 years,
Yeah.
it's going to continue. Um, I think the harder bit for society is when I sit there and think about what do I tell my kids,
Yeah.
right? When they're growing up, So I've got 3 boys.
Yeah.
Alfie's 11, Jake's 8, and Tom is 5.
Okay.
When I look at them and think, gosh, in 10, 15 years, when you want to go to university or you want to do your first job, what's that going to look like?
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't think I'd be saying be a software engineer.
No.
I'm not sure I'd say you can probably list off all the jobs, right? I think that's the hard bit. I was chatting to we're having some work done at home at the moment,
Yeah.
having an extension build. So I was chatting to our builder about this topic, actually, about AI and
Yeah.
what you do. And it's, do you advise your children to go into something that's physical labor? Because actually we'll always need builders or plumbers or electricians, and going down that kind of apprenticeship route is a stronger, safer career. Or is it actually overhyped?
Yeah.
And actually, of course, we'll still need software engineers because the world just looks slightly different for a software engineer because you're partnering with
The role changes.
yeah, you're partnering with a number of agents and you're delivering more output, but ultimately you're still going to be the human in the loop who's
Yep.
orchestrating all this stuff. So I think, and it's if you listen, there's just so much material out there, right?
Yeah.
When it's talking about AI like we are now, right? That you read that's either a real doomsday scenario about what it means for human existence, or it's, other end of the spectrum, it's a load of hype and it's all going to go away in a few years' time, right?
Yeah.
It's clearly not either of
There's
those.
probably something in the middle.
Hopefully it's
Yeah.
something in the middle, right? But it still means quite profound changes, I think, as a society.
Yeah.
And yeah, I ground myself. The sort of checkpoint along the way and grounding is, what am I telling my children?
Yeah. Okay.
When they're saying, I want to be a scientist when I'm older, I want to be a maths teacher when I'm older, I want to be, and it's always how do I foresee that might look different?
Yeah.
In 10, 15 years time.
What do you think we'll look back on in maybe like 5 years time and go, we misunderstood that about AI?
I think there is a misconception that AI can do everything without a human.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've quite, as a society or even in a business sense, actually, or even at Travelopia, quite grasped yet the power of the combination of having a human in the loop, but then the sort of partnering with an AI, a set of agents,
Yeah.
whatever, that can deliver vast amounts of work and output, but still with the human in the loop. And I think there is a misconception that all of that can happen without having a human in the loop. And I think it works in some instances. It doesn't work in other areas, and some people understand it, some people don't. But I worry that there's a perception that the AI will just do everything without ever needing a human. So I don't fundamentally believe that's true. The AI doesn't always get it right?
No, of course.
See it yourself, I'm sure, right? And it needs that back and forwards and fine tuning to get to a point. It's like, now it's saying what I wanted it to say.
Yeah.
So I think the power of the human in the loop, I'm not sure is really very well understood by everybody yet.
Yeah, I think it's a key point, and I think people need to remember that and have it in the forefront of their minds that we're very good at making change and we create problems by solving problems, etc. As humans, but we always have gone through cycles where like, the internet was one thing where it came and it was going to change everything. There'll be no more jobs. There'll be no more shops on the high street with e-commerce. It's still there.
Exactly.
Right? We're not going to destroy everything. And I don't think the governments would let us as well. Rightly so. Do their jobs. So yeah, I think we're into a position whereby we can get the benefit from it and use it to help us as humans ultimately.
Yeah. Agree.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's been great having you. I think we've discussed pretty much everything we can. Solved it. Move on. What's the next thing? But thank you again for coming in and really enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise. Thanks very much.